Why is the Holocaust treated more seriously compared to other genocides? The Japanese have quite a horrific history during the same time. Most people don't even know about it. I think it's because of the shock people got when they discovered the camp. It was not just about killing people. It was about making it efficient and systematic, while also making whatever profit possible. That part is quite unique. There was not just a lot of dead people. There was also the survivors and their terrifying thinness. And stories. At only a few kilometers of people living their lives, totally unaware. I would say the number of people killed and the technology used to do so. WW2 brought on the use of new, more efficient ways to eliminate undesirables. First off, I think certain things you can't compare. There's no worst genocide. There's only genocide. As for why the Holocaust has such significance, not from an emotional but historical perspective, it was the only genocide that was that systemic and international. On that scale, with that many kill factories, with that many dead, like all these things combined together, everyone was in on finding every last Jew. From doctors to post offices, police, anyone who has ever kept any sort of records. It's also one of the few genocides that didn't occur to get land, or impose a certain religion, or disenfranchise people, or punish another people's or leader. It was killing for the kill, to erase a whole culture just for the sake of it. Religious Jew or non-religious ethnical Jew, didn't matter. Convert or change your identity, didn't matter. If you had just one Jewish grandparent, you were about to die. The Armenian genocide, for example, has some similarities, and was actually the inspiration for Hitler. Because Turkey got away with it, so Hitler figured he could too. But it was contained to a certain area. The Holocaust was global in the sense that as far as the Nazis reached, which was quite far for a time, it was happening. There's probably some truth to it that white people care BC it was a European thing. Around that time, for example, many non-white Middle Eastern Jews in the Middle East were also killed and suffered. But Europeans know much less about that. Though I would imagine that, for example, someone in India knows a lot about the bad things that happened there, but much less about what happened in Europe. My friend is Chinese and her knowledge about it is only pretty general. Just as mine is about historical events in China. It's not some conspiracy. What Jews have that many others don't is a lobby. Because they always maintained connection to each other, and also they do quite well now often. Even Jews who don't do so well give money to Jewish causes often and generously. Ironically, they were forbidden from most professions in Europe for long times. But banking they were allowed to do. And so they did. And did it well. Which was one reason for the Holocaust. That they got too successful with the little they were allowed to do. If you have a lobby, you have a voice. That doesn't prevent anti-Semitism. Jews in the US are only 2% of the population but suffer the most religion-related hate crimes. But it gives you some leverage. So what we would really need would be a stronger lobby for all the others that suffered through things like this. So the world just can't ignore it. It's not that the Jews need to be more quiet, but the others need ways to be just as loud. I think it's partly because of the brutal efficiency and the relatively short period in which it took place. Though it is true, genocides in poorer countries and typically ignored by the news media, and everyone in general, I think it's hard to do anything meaningful about it when most of it takes place while a country is in a civil war, or other unrest. Anything less than a full-scale war wouldn't be enough. Because of the scale. And yeah, probably because it was Europeans. What surprises me is that Stalin doesn't get talked about the way Hitler does. I'm not going to pretend I'm a history buff. But here's how I see it. Genocide usually happens over power, money, rare resources, tribal conflict, ongoing wars, etc. The Holocaust had one goal: industry-fueled extermination. If 6 million people were killed with the highest level of efficiency known to man, it doesn't matter if it was in Europe, Africa, the Americas, Asia, or Antarctica, it would still be the most efficient mass killing of any group of people ever. It's the fear factor of seeing something you never ever thought humans to be capable of being done. With industrial hyper-efficiency, people were being paid to use their engineering degrees to create slaughterhouses for people. Because it was a very public genocide, from what was supposed to be a forward-thinking European country, and it was a modern example of everything everyone should hate about a fascist dictatorship. And it was a turning point in history. It changed the world forever. WW2. That is, it's not just the Holocaust. It's everything that came after it. It still echoes. Because the Holocaust is basically what formalized the idea of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. These acts existed all throughout the span of human history, but they were not named, nor was there the idea that humankind had a fundamental duty to prevent them. The names and ideas of these crimes arose from scholarship around the Holocaust, and the stated reason for that scholarship is to teach the Holocaust in order to prevent future genocides. There were plenty of genocides before and genocides after, but the Holocaust gave name to and made formal the worldwide legal and moral concepts meant to prevent them in the future. Those other genocides are probably treated much more seriously by the cultures that experienced them. What makes the Holocaust notable, more relevant to Western-style democracies, is how easily a modern well-educated society embraced the obvious propaganda and vilification of a group who looked and spoke like them, then progressed to government-run industrialized genocide. Scary because we are again starting to see a rise of right-wing hardline divisive parties and candidates in democracies all over the world, just as we did 100 years ago. One of my friends insists it's because it happened in Europe to Europeans. So people care more and have more empathy. He thinks if it had happened in Africa or Asia, no one would have cared as much, and it wouldn't have been a central part of WW2. Honestly, I think this has some truth to it. I'm not saying this to downplay or ignore how bad the Holocaust was, but there are so many genocides that are worse that no one talks about, or for a lot of people aren't even aware happened, especially in Africa and Asia. For example, King Leopold II is responsible for the killing of 10-15 million Africans, and I never even heard of this until maybe a year and a half ago, which led to me buying a book about the topic. I am Native American, and I had another Native friend who called doing these types of comparisons the Oppression Olympics. In other words, it's like a contest about who had it worst. I don't think it's useful to compare genocides. The term genocide was coined as a response to the Holocaust. Before that, there was no term. I bring up the Congolese genocide because a lot of people don't know about it. 10 million Africans were genocided under Leopold II rule. Some people, some very smart people, just don't think that it's possible that there was a genocide worse than the Holocaust until you show them. Someone could say it's because most of the Holocaust victims were Caucasian that it's taken so serious. Others say it's the most recent in history. There's photos and video of it, but all that's a different discussion I am not gonna get into. I haven't seen a single comment on how King Leopold killed 10 million Congolese, and it kinda shows that you're right. While it was over a longer duration, 10 mil is def more than 6 mil. Both were atrocities that should have never been committed, but most know about the Holocaust and don't know about how terrible the Belgians were. The scale and methods used, and because it happened in Europe. Because when it happened, pretty much everyone involved in WW2 was touched by this event. My stepmom is Indonesian and their understanding of WW2 is quite limited. She didn't even recognize a swastika. However, she knows plenty about the Indonesian War of Independence, which happened at around the same time as WW2. We learn about the tragedies that are most relevant to us. Most of us are related to a veteran of WW2, so have a somewhat personal connection to it. 1. It happened in the middle of Europe. Perpetrated by one of the European top dogs. 2. Germany lost World War II, so their dirty laundry got publicly exposed without many issues. 3. New Germany accepted their burden and have tried to do their best to acknowledge, rectify and atone for the genocide. Unlike other nations that still downplay or downright deny their genocidal past. 4. The victimized group was still large and powerful enough to keep the memory alive and relevant, whereas other smaller and weaker groups are almost forgotten or are just mentioned in the and others list of heinous genocides. This is not an endorsement of the trite anti-Zionism prejudice. One of the reasons is that Germany was seen as one of the more advanced societies at that time. From a Eurocentric point of view, they contributed significantly to philosophy, music, art, literature, etc. They were highly cultured and literally in the center of Europe. Then not only did they let a tyrant rise to lead them, but they systematically killed millions of other Europeans. And they didn't do this through battles or conquest, they literally put them on trains and shipped them to be killed. Cold efficiency. Add to that most of the victims were Jews. More than half. Jews are also a cultured and sophisticated society. Again from a Eurocentric point of view, who also contributed greatly to the societies of Europe. So I think many people in the West did not realize how such horrors could happen this close to home. Among sophisticated societies, genocide was something that happened in barbarous parts of the uncivilized world. It wasn't supposed to happen here in the cradle of progress and culture. From what I remember in my world history and society class, it wasn't so much about how many they killed, but how they killed them and why that way. Along with the historical climate of that era, World War II was a time of unprecedented societal changes, with the introduction of fascism not just becoming a national power, but a global power, spreading through several countries despite their varying cultures. Also, it was a time of industrial revolution, a change of warfare as our weapons grew more deadly and warfare tactics quickly became archaic. World War I racked high casualties because we used battle tactics that instantly became useless to the advanced weaponry. But back to the Holocaust. The reason why it's the most noticeable genocide because it's the genocide that reflected the era of warfare progress. Still remains a league alone in comparison to other genocides. Genocides before focused solely on the complete eradication of a culture. The Holocaust became a study of how to commit the most effective genocide on a people by a government. The Nazis didn't just kill the Jews. They sought the best way to kill Jews. They gassed them. They burned them. They shot them. They buried them alive. They experimented on them. They had other Jews kill them. The cold and ruthless study of an entire people's destruction has never been seen before in the history of the world. It opened new studies in human psychology, sociology, and other things I can't even begin to comprehend.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TooAfraidToAsk is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.